right, in this lesson, we're going to look at how to solve a polynomial inequality by graphing. So that's our learning target. I can solve a polynomial inequality by graphing. So we're going to first look at the inequality given, and we're going to determine if we're looking for a positive or a negative interval. So if I'm looking at x to the third minus 16x less than 0, if I want this to be less than 0, that means I'm looking for a negative. Anything less than 0 would be negative. So I'm looking for where is the negative intervals on the graph. So the first thing we're going to do is graph the function. Step 1, graph with technology. Okay, so I'll throw in to Desmos this x to the third minus 16x, and then let me sketch that out for you. You have x-intercepts at -4, 0, and +4. And it looks like this, something like that. So if I'm looking for my negative intervals, I'm going to highlight those negative parts of the graph. So I graphed my inequality there. In step 2, I found my x-intercepts. My zeros. And then now I'm going to highlight either the positive or negative interval. And I'm looking for the negative interval because this is less than 0. Anything less than 0 is negative. So negative is below the x-axis, positive is above the x-axis. Okay. Now, the last thing I need to do is give my answer as an inequality. All right, so this part here would be from -infinity to -4. And this part here would be from 0 to 4. But I want to write it as an inequality. So if it's going to the negative direction, x is getting smaller. So that means x is anything less than -4. And then here, I have all the x values in between 0 and 4. So it will look like this, 0, x values in between 0 and 4. So that would be my answer. X is less than -4, or 0 is less than x is less than +4. So ignore all this here. This is another way to do it, but I think this way is easier, so we're just going to follow these 4 steps here. Let's do one more together, and then I'll let you try one on your own. If you think you've got it, go ahead and pause the video and try this on your own. Okay, so let's look at 6a here. So I'm going to first graph this with my graphing utility. And I'll throw that in there and I'll see that my x values are at -4.7. negative 1.3, and 0. So I'll plot those x-intercepts, and then I'm able to sketch my graph. Okay. And now I'm going to check and see, am I looking for a positive or a negative interval? So if I'm looking at less than 0, then I'm looking for a negative. Anything less than 0 is negative. And that's going to fall below the x-axis. So I'll highlight those intervals below the x-axis. So this piece right here is from negative infinity to negative 4.7. And then this piece right here is from negative 1.3 to 0. Now I need to give them an interval notation. So my final answer is x is less than negative 4.7, because x is getting smaller, it's going towards negative infinity. And then x is all the values in between negative 1.3 and 0. So this or this. All right, try B. Okay, so I put this in my Desmos, and I get the x-intercepts at negative 2, negative 1, positive 1, and 3. Negative 2, negative 1, positive 1, and 3. All right. And then I'm going to look up here. I'm looking for greater than 0. So anything bigger than 0 is going to be positive. Bigger than 0 is positive. So I'm looking for anything above the x-axis. Positive is above the x-axis there. So I'm looking at negative infinity to negative 2. And then I'm looking at negative 1 to positive 1. And then I'm looking at positive 3 to positive infinity. Okay, then I'm going to write these as inequalities. So x is going towards negative infinity here. So x is less than negative 2. Or x is in between negative 1 and 1. Or x is greater. It's going towards the positive, so x is greater than 3. All right. And that is how you find the solution to a polynomial inequality.